You think you're safe because you have a green card? The biggest mistake thousands of permanent residents make is believing that. You step off the plane after a long business trip, exhausted but relieved, until a hand grips your shoulder. Please come with me. In just a few minutes, your American dream can disappear. Not because you broke the law, but because you didn't know about the traps waiting at the border. Below are 7 silent truths that every green card holder must know if they don't want to risk their entire future just because of a forgotten tax filing, a silent bank account, or a seemingly harmless question. Where do you live? The 180-day trap. When a small deadline destroys the American dream. You don't have to be a criminal. You don't have to sneak or lie. Sometimes, to lose everything you've built in America, all it takes is passing the 181st day. In the strict immigration system of the United States, the number 180 is not just a matter of time. It is an invisible but ruthless boundary, where a single step beyond it, whether for work, family, or even moral duty, is enough for the authorities to declare, "You've abandoned America." Mark, a financial expert who had lived in Florida for 15 years, once thought he understood the law. He kept his apartment in Miami, filed taxes regularly, and called America home. But then a lucrative contract took him to London for 7 months. Upon return, it wasn't his family or coworkers waiting at JFK Airport. It was an immigration officer with a cold stare and a firm statement. You have violated the residency requirement. Your green card is no longer valid. The issue wasn't what Mark did, but the default assumption built into the system. USCIS considers that if a permanent resident is absent from the U.S. for more than 180 consecutive days, then by principle, they have abandoned their intent to live here long-term. No hearing required, no warning letter, just one note on the file. Abandonment suspected. Mark's story is not unique. It is a warning to thousands living between two worlds, both global citizens and lawful U.S. residents. In the post-pandemic era, with remote work, international assignments, and family caregiving more common than ever, the 180-day trap is quietly being laid everywhere. The disturbing part is this: the system is not flexible. It doesn't ask what you were doing during those 6 months. It doesn't care if you were sending money back for your kid's education in Texas. It doesn't acknowledge that you kept full health insurance, filed your taxes, and paid rent on time. In the eyes of the bureaucracy, physical presence is the absolute requirement for maintaining residency. If you are not on U.S. soil frequently enough, then you no longer belong. And here lies the most terrifying truth. This abandonment does not require your consent. It doesn't need your signature. It happens silently, coldly, like a guillotine falling while you're looking the other way. And by the time you realize it, it's too late to resist. No one told Mark that a 7-month contract in London could erase 15 years of contribution, work, and loyalty. No one reminded him that his round-trip ticket only held value if used before day 180. In the eyes of multinational corporations, Mark was a success story, a respected expert, a bridge across the Atlantic. In the eyes of the U.S. government, he was someone who had disappeared without saying goodbye. This story is not just about legal codes. It's a reminder that the American dream must be protected not only by hard work, but by vigilance. In the modern world where people live, work, and love across time zones, the U.S. still runs its immigration system like a 20th century machine, where physical presence is valued above all emotional, legal, and financial ties. For those who long to build a life in this country, that means living in a state of invisible fear. Every round-trip ticket is not just a means of travel, it is a countdown clock. Every day spent in another country is a day the American dream becomes more fragile. And when you return, walking through the gates of an international airport, You are not just coming home. You are walking into a trial you were never told about, with no attorney, and where one extra day can take everything away. The American dream, it turns out, isn't lost in great catastrophes. It quietly falls apart. On the 181st day, the survival file. 3 pieces of paper that hold an entire life together. Day 181 may be the spark, but what makes your green card vanish isn't time, it's proof, or more precisely, the absence of it. In America, you don't live by emotion or intention. You live by the traces you leave on paper. And if those traces disappear, even if you're still here, still breathing American air every day, you're no longer alive in the eyes of the system. Imagine you're a character in a detective novel, and USCIS is the investigator. They don't need to interrogate you, they just open your file, look at the data, and draw conclusions. In this game of survival, there are 3 simple documents that mean life or death. Lose one of the 3, and you could live like a model citizen and still be cast out of the American dream like you never belonged. Driver's license, a mirror of your presence. An American without a driver's license isn't unusual, but someone living in the U.S. without a valid license, or with a license from another state or worse, an expired one, in USCIS's eyes, that person has quietly walked away. It's not because they need you to drive. It's because the driver's license is the strongest address verification tool in the American administrative system. It not only shows where you are, but also serves as the key to confirm you are still alive, active, and part of this place. A valid license with an address that matches your tax records, bank account, and utility bills is the strongest statement. I'm still here. Say you go on an extended work trip, but don't update your address or renew your ID. The system won't see you. And when you're no longer visible, you also no longer legally exist. Bank statements? The silent story told through everyday transactions. It's ironic that a $4 Starbucks coffee might save you from deportation, but that's the truth. In a world where life is proven through consumer behavior, every bank transaction becomes evidence of your real, lived life in America. USCIS isn't looking at your balance. They're looking at activity. They don't care if you have $200,000 or $20 in the account. They want to see you living, buying food, paying rent, covering your phone bill, pumping gas, even paying for parking. If your account is asleep for 3 straight months, they'll start asking, where does this person live? If you can't answer with transactions, they'll answer for you. Not in the U.S. Immigrants often transfer funds abroad, leaving behind a token U.S. account just in case. But that's one of the deadliest mistakes. That account, instead of preserving your status, becomes reverse evidence that you've stepped out of American life. Tax returns, a life declaration. Every April, a tax return is not just a financial obligation. It's your survival declaration to America. Every year you file, even with low or no income, you're loudly stating, I'm still here. I'm still participating in the economy. I'm not avoiding my responsibilities. Miss 1 year, and the system won't see you. Miss 2, and you'll be on the watch list. And when you return to the border, the officer's eyes won't be welcoming. They'll be suspicious. Why has your file been silent for so long? Worse, if you file taxes from an address overseas or from a state that doesn't match your license, bank, or insurance, then you haven't just lost credibility. You've lost legal coherence in the entire system. In a society where everything is monitored through data and behavioral models, living isn't simply existing. It's a series of actions that can be measured, verified, and recorded. A green card isn't a permanent permit. It's a silent contract between you and the system. Every time you forget to renew a document, let your bank account go quiet, or skip a tax season. You're slowly tearing up that contract. And at some point, when you believe you're still protected, still belong, reality hits like a cold slap. Sorry, you're no longer part of America. Remember, there is no summons announcing the day you're erased. There are only 3 small pieces of paper. And either you keep them alive or you lose everything. The invisible address. When silence on paper turns you into a stranger. There is a paradox in the U.S. immigration system. You can be truly living, yet still be seen as having left. You could be sitting in your Brooklyn apartment, paying bills on time, but if the system doesn't see you, then legally, you've disappeared. Welcome to the invisible address rule. A subtle trap, not written in any official document, yet silently determining the fate of thousands of permanent residents each year. This isn't about the address where you actually live, but the one the system believes you live at. And if the two don't match on paper, you're no longer a legal resident. You're a faded presence, and fading is the first step toward erasure. No proof, no right to exist. Imagine, you travel to Manila to care for your sick mother for 2 months, leaving your mail to be forwarded to a relative's house in California. Your residence is still listed in New York, but important letters no longer arrive there. You don't think to update your address, too many things on your mind. But to USCIS, you've disappeared from your declared place of residence. And that's not just an administrative oversight. It's a glaring red flag that you might be using a fake address. In other words, you might be committing fraud. In America, your address isn't just where you sleep each night. It's the foundation for verifying every other piece of your life. Driver's license, bank, utility bills, tax records, voter registration, even your child's school application. If the address doesn't match, the entire system becomes suspicious. And in a machine with no emotions, suspicion is enough to start the process of revoking your residency. Fading away, the silent death of an immigration record. There's a kind of disappearance that doesn't require you to board a plane. It's when you leave no trace at your declared address, no utility bills in your name, no IRS letters arriving, no bank statements tied to that address, no DMV notices. Over time, your file goes silent, and eventually, it vanishes from the radar. The cruel part is you might still be in the U.S., but because you haven't left living proof through your official address, you're seen as already gone. A legal resident, by law, is not someone who's merely present, but someone the system recognizes as being present. And that comes not from physical presence, but from administrative presence. An empty mailbox, the unexpected sign of abandonment. USCIS doesn't need to follow you with cameras or GPS. They only need to check your mailbox. No letters, no notices, no statements. You've gone off the grid. They have algorithms to cross-check your declared address with actual activity at that location. They don't need to know where you are. As long as your address is no longer alive, they can make an administrative decision. Worse, if the address you use is just a P.O. box or a friend's house where you don't actually live, it could be considered residency fraud. The consequences go beyond a warning. You could be flagged for special review, or worse, have your green card revoked at the border without any prior notice. Memory isn't enough. Only documents can save you. Immigrants often confuse memory with proof. They believe that keeping the apartment, remembering the room number, and paying rent on time is enough. But without matching paperwork and active evidence, that memory holds no value in the eyes of immigration officials. This system doesn't care about feelings. It only cares about the logic of data. And address, something seemingly simple, is actually the point where all forms of identification intersect. Lose your living address, and you don't just lose credibility, you lose the entire legal structure that protects your residency. There are deportations that don't require airplanes. They happen silently, when you open the mailbox and find it empty, when the first bill fails to arrive, when the bank automatically cancels your old address for being inactive. And by the time you realize it, the only thing left is a green card. Cold, meaningless, and powerless. In the world of USCIS, where you live isn't where your feet stand, but where your proof of life remains. If you can't prove your address is real, then in their eyes, you never truly belonged here. The bank account that speaks. When numbers accuse you of leaving America. There are investigations that require no interrogation, no warrant, no testimony. In the world of U.S. immigration, everything you spend, every dollar you swipe, speaks for you. And when they stay silent too long, they begin saying the worst. This account holder is no longer here. We often think of bank accounts as just a place to store money, but to USCIS, it's a living file. And the irony is, the more cautious you are, the less you touch that account to save money. Or because you're away temporarily, the more it becomes evidence against you. In an era where silence equals abandonment, an inactive account is practically a confession. Even if you had no intention of leaving the U.S., silent absence can determine the future. When you withdrew the last bit of money to travel home and care for your ailing father, you thought you were just stepping away for a while. But 3 months later, when your card hasn't been swiped at stores, hasn't paid for gas, hasn't shown up in any daily transaction, you start falling under watch. USCIS doesn't care how much money you have left. They don't look at balance, they look at movement. An account with $80,000 but inactive for 90 days is a red flag. Meanwhile, an account with just $120 but active, with small local grocery purchases, phone top-ups, Netflix payments, is considered proof of legal presence. Mute, missing, or no longer belonging. The scariest part isn't the amount of money, it's how the system interprets silence. When a bank doesn't see you spending, they won't freeze your account, but USCIS starts asking questions. To them, it's a form of refusing to participate in American life. And if you're not participating, you're no longer a resident. In immigration law's eyes, a lawful permanent resident isn't just someone who holds a green card. It's someone who behaves in a way that reflects a deep connection to America. And that behavior doesn't have to be grand. Just buy a coffee in New Jersey, pump gas in Florida, or pay your monthly internet bill. That's how you tell your story to the system. I'm living, I exist, I'm engaged. A small transaction, a chance to keep your future. Some stories sound unbelievable, but are real. One person was detained at the airport, questioned for being away too long, but when they opened their phone and showed a bank statement with small transactions, $3.25 at Starbucks, $48.90 at Target, $17.95 at a pharmacy. That was enough to clear them. Because to the system, you can't be a ghost if your trace still exists on American streets, even through a single card swipe. On the other hand, if you let your account sit empty for 90 days, no transactions, no footprints, you've disappeared without saying goodbye. Even if you have 1,000 valid reasons, caring for family, working on an overseas project, or simply being frugal, the system doesn't listen to reasons. It only reads data. The price of saving and of not knowing many immigrants fall into this trap not out of fraud, but out of ignorance. They believe not touching their money is the best way to protect their future. But in the U.S., money that doesn't move means an owner who doesn't exist. You don't need to spend recklessly, but you do need to show life through regular financial activity. And if you live outside the U.S. for a while, the solution isn't to freeze everything. It's to maintain a minimal administrative heartbeat, set up small automatic payments, keep a basic level of spending locally, Leave a trail of transactions that shows you're still breathing. Legally. A bank account isn't just a place to hold money. In the journey of a U.S. permanent resident, it is your administrative heart. When it stops beating, the system stops seeing you. And when the system doesn't see you, you've fallen off the legal map of this country. You don't need to shout that you're still here. Just let your bank card speak for you. I'm still here. I haven't gone anywhere. But if you let it stay silent too long, it will speak the opposite on your behalf. And no one will hear you when you finally speak up. Expired green card. When one forgotten day becomes the door to a permanent exit. It's just a piece of plastic. No flashy colors, no sounds, no blinking lights like a platinum credit card. It doesn't beep when it's about to expire. No alarm rings when you forget it. But because of that silence, it can cause your entire life in the U.S. to slip away, just because of one forgotten day. An expired green card isn't just an inconvenience. It's an invisible declaration that you've ended your legal life in the United States. And the terrifying part is, most immigrants don't even know it. Expiration date. Small words, huge consequences. On the back of the card, the lines "resident since" and "card expires" are often overlooked by the holder. They think that as long as they're living in the U.S., working, paying taxes, the expiration date is just a technical detail, something they can renew anytime. Wrong. Critically wrong. To USCIS and the Department of Homeland Security, an expired green card is living proof that you've failed to maintain your commitment to permanent residency. When your card loses validity, every right tied to it, from legal employment, public benefits, to re-entry into the country, comes under suspicion. It's like walking into an interview dressed in a sharp suit, but holding a fake document. You're disqualified from trust at first glance. The border? Where truth needs no explanation. The scariest scenario happens in the most unexpected place. The port of entry. You return from a short trip visiting family overseas. All your documents are in order, but the officer sees that cold expiration date printed on your green card. And instantly, everything changes. You're no longer a welcomed resident, but a case to be processed. And processed here could mean being taken to secondary inspection, having your luggage held, your passport seized, and being recommended for immediate deportation, because by regulation, you're no longer a legal resident. No one asks if you forgot on purpose. No one cares if you were busy or never received a renewal notice. In the system, time is absolute, and your time expired along with those small printed numbers. Negligence can kill an entire future. What hurts many people most is not losing their residency. It's losing it through negligence. They think, "It's fine, I'll do it later." They postpone it for work, for family, for the pandemic. They believe immigration law will be flexible with their situation. But this system is not built to understand. It's built to judge, using data that's rigid and emotionless. One day late is treated the same as deliberate fraud. An invalid card is treated like a forged passport. And a resident who forgets is no different from someone who intentionally abandons the law. Time is a clock that makes no sound. Did you know USCIS allows green card renewal up to 6 months before the expiration date? But they have no obligation to remind you. And if you're not proactive, don't track it, don't check it regularly. Then each passing day is a step deeper into legal limbo. Once it expires, the renewal process is no longer a routine. It's a rescue mission. You'll need to redo your file, submit an explanation, maybe even be placed on a watch list. And every right you used to have, opening bank accounts, applying for jobs, renewing your driver's license, will hang in suspension. To native-born Americans, an ID is just a card. But to an immigrant, The green card is the spine of legality. When it breaks, even due to a simple lapse in memory, the entire structure collapses like dominoes. You may not remember what you bought last week. You might forget an old email password, but never forget your green card's expiration date. Because it's not just a number, it's an unannounced closing door, a moment that decides the fate of the dream you carried with you to this country. If you're reading this, open your wallet, check your card. And if that date is approaching, don't wait another second. Because in America, hesitation, even for just one day, can be the last day you're called a permanent resident. The forgotten tax return. When one blank line erases an entire future. In America, you might not talk much. No one in the neighborhood knows your name. No one at work remembers your face. But there's one place that never forgets you. The tax system. And in that place, whether you live quietly or boldly, whether you're a successful entrepreneur or a modest laborer, you are required to leave a trace every year or face legal erasure. Not filing taxes is not a minor offense. In the eyes of USCIS, it's the clearest declaration that you no longer live in the U.S. 1 year of absence might be overlooked if you have a valid reason, but a missing tax return, never. Financial silence is self-erasure from the residency map. Carlos is a Peruvian electrical engineer living in Houston for 8 years. He worked hard, kept to himself, and never missed a rent payment. But last year, after a long period of unemployment, Carlos didn't file taxes. He thought simply, "I didn't make any money, so what is there to file?" 6 months later, preparing to apply for citizenship, he was called in for an additional interview. The USCIS officer flipped through his silent file. Then came the sentence everyone fears: "We don't see you existing in 2024. It wasn't that Carlos wasn't present, but the system didn't hear him through a tax return. And to USCIS, silence means disappearance. No income doesn't mean no responsibility. Many permanent residents believe that if they had no salary, didn't run a business, didn't sell anything, there's no reason to file taxes. That's a deadly mistake. The system doesn't require you to be wealthy, but it does require you to be visible. And that visibility must be shown through the 1040 tax form every year. Even if you didn't earn a single dollar, you still have to submit a return with a reported income of 0. That small action isn't just a duty, it's a shield before the scrutiny of both USCIS and the IRS. It declares, "I'm still here. I haven't disappeared." 1 form, 2 agencies, countless consequences. The IRS and USCIS are 2 separate entities, but when it comes to residency, they're twin administrative powers. When you don't file taxes, the IRS might send a reminder, but USCIS doesn't need to notify you. They just note it in your immigration file. And then, when you apply to renew your green card or re-enter the U.S., that file becomes a double-edged sword. To them, no taxes equals non-existent. 1 year of physical absence can be excused with medical records, an overseas job contract, or proof of caregiving. But 1 year without taxes is a trap with no exit, because there is no acceptable reason for not appearing in the financial system. Ignorance doesn't excuse responsibility. No one is born knowing how to fill out a W-2 or 1099. The American tax system is extremely complex, and newcomers can easily feel overwhelmed. But complexity won't protect you from consequences. If you don't know, you'll still be treated as someone who deliberately avoided the law. USCIS doesn't have a forgiveness for confusion section. They have a metric for confirming administrative existence, and you only exist if you appear in the IRS system at the right time, in the right way, and with complete information. File to stay, not just to pay. Erase this misconception. Filing taxes is not just about money. It's an act of holding your place on the immigration map. Just as swiping your card proves you're living in the U.S., see Section 4, filing taxes is how you sign your name to confirm that you are still a part of this country. If you're absent from national financial records, logically, you've stepped out of the system. And USCIS doesn't need to ask why. They just need to open the screen, see the blank space, and quietly shut the door on your dream. A tax return may not make you rich, but it keeps you here. It's a small line of text that can keep you on the list of permanent residents in the healthcare system, eligible to work, and with the right to hope for U.S. citizenship. Don't gamble your future with silence. Because in a country where everything can be traced, silence is a verdict that needs no signature. If you didn't earn a penny last year, file. If you forgot, file late. Because better to be 1 year late than lose a lifetime. The bank account that speaks. When every dollar spent is a pledge to America. You can live quietly, work quietly, love quietly. But in America, there's one thing you cannot keep quiet: the money flow in your bank account. Because here, financial silence is a goodbye that doesn't need to be spoken. No investigators, no tracking devices, just open a bank transaction history. And USCIS can know how you're living, where you're living, and, most importantly, whether you still belong to the United States. No spending, future vanishing. From the perspective of the U.S. immigration system, every transaction is a heartbeat of life. A $60 phone bill, a $4.50 coffee, or even a $20 ATM withdrawal, all are signals that you are present and participating in the economic life of this country. Now imagine, you fly back to Vietnam to visit your ailing parents. You stay for 4 months. You don't touch your U.S. bank account because you brought cash or used another international card. You think it's a rational, frugal decision. But to USCIS, you just disappeared. 90 days without transactions. No card swipes, no bill payments. To the residency surveillance system, you are no longer a permanent resident. You are someone who has withdrawn. A cup of coffee could save your residency. It may sound like a joke, but many immigration lawyers in California or New York have saved clients with nothing more than a bank statement full of small transactions. Because in the cold data map of USCIS, it is those everyday activities that serve as life-saving evidence. On the other hand, an account with $100,000 but zero spending activity holds no value. Wealth does not prove your presence. Financial behavior is your silent residency permit. The harmful coincidence. When paused spending matches paused presence. Financial hardship is common. Some people are unemployed, some are sick, some just want to cut costs for a while. But if that coincides with your absence from the U.S., the system won't consider it a coincidence. USCIS does not read intentions, they read data. And when your account shows no activity, you have no tax filings, as previously mentioned, no recurring bills, then every door is closing while you're unaware. Your ATM card, an internal passport. We often think of passports as the key to entering and exiting a country. But once you have a green card, your bank card, seemingly trivial, is actually your most powerful internal passport. It won't take you through customs, but it can get you through silent deportation files. Because in this country, real presence isn't about how you breathe, it's about how you spend. Every time you withdraw cash from a local ATM, every time you pay a utility bill, every time you reload your phone plan, you are signing your residency file. And when you stop that activity for a few months, the system doesn't label you as frugal. They label you as gone. Don't let a blank statement erase your immigration journey. You may have passed your green card interview. You may have waited for years to settle. You may have built a job, a family, a whole future in America. But if you neglect one seemingly small thing, an inactive bank account, everything can collapse in a few clicks by a USCIS officer. Because to the system, the American dream is not what you carry in your heart, but what you prove with data. In America, not spending money for a long time can be seen as evidence of abandoning your residency. It's not fair, it's not humane, but it's very real. So if you're about to travel far, or you're living a simple financial life, don't forget to leave a trace of life. A small transaction, a recurring payment, a simple act of spending can keep you connected to America, not just in your heart, but in the system. And in an era where everything is recorded, it's what you spend that truly holds you in place.